Hello, my name's Forrest Brown, and today I'm going to talk to you about how to use IT to communicate effectively. In this first part of the video, we're just going to have a look at the different ways that you can communicate to all different types of people and different types of audiences. Right, for the first piece, we're going to look at the presentation software you can use. These will be things like Keynote, PowerPoint, and any other presentation software like that, really. Whether you'd use this in maybe a formal or informal way, it's quick and easy to use. I think the best thing about a presentation is that you can cover all different types of learners. You can cover the visual, audio, kinesthetic people as well, because you're providing a presentation that someone can see. You're actually communicating to the person at the same time, so you're talking to them. And plus, if you want, you can get them involved as well, like ask questions, things like that. The second piece we're going to look at is word processing, things like Pages, Word. I'd say these are used to communicate to people in more of a formal way. You'd expect a letter to come through the post, like a letter of invoice or a formal letter about one of the services you have at home. And quite often businesses use these to communicate with their customers and also their business contractors, because it seems a formal documentation that you can keep and there's proof of what they have said to you. The third way of communicating with people we're looking at is email. Now, when email was first introduced, I think it was used in more of a formal way to communicate with people, especially as times have gone on and computers come cheaper and things like that, and now you can access the email pretty much anywhere in the world. I think it's become quite informal now. You get not so much socially talking, but people who are like long distance conversations and things like that. And again, businesses and companies sending more formal letters of invoices and notifications saying things have been dispatched, and also they now send out the automated emails that if you do something online with a business, they'll send you an automated email which will just go to you automatically. Now, the fourth way to communicate we're looking at is the web. Now, the web, I'd say when it was first introduced, was used a lot more. You get people just talking on a website without really using a comment box. They'll just adding on pieces of text really to their conversation, almost like a script. But now I think that's kind of died out, and it's now led on to the next thing, which is the fifth thing, which is blogs and vlogs. I think again these are quite informal ways to talk to each other. Really, it's just a way of tracking your own process for yourself and to show other people what you're doing at the moment. And a lot of people have debates through blogs and vlogs about, well, anything really, from political things to just basic views on daily life. But also I think people use not so much the blogs, but the vlogs to share their experiences of where they've been, what they've done, an activity they're getting involved in, charity work, things like that. So the audience can really kind of just join in and get hands-on. And some of them are just simply to entertain people, I think, and just to get views, in a sense, now as there's money to be made from these sort of things. Now, the sixth thing we're looking at is the instant messaging, which I think has really taken off now, and it probably is the most informal way to talk to someone. You wouldn't go out and Facebook message your boss saying, "Oh, sorry boss, I won't be in today, I'm ill." This is more the free world of texting, because it's all done over the internet. Things like WhatsApp, Facebook Messenger, oh god, all those sort of things. There's so many out there now. But really, I think it's just a free way of texting for people now. And then the last one we're going to look at is video conferencing. I think that's, ever since that's come out, that has stayed probably one of the most formal ways to talk to someone on the internet now, as it's used really in business purposes, because you still want that face-to-face conversation with someone that you're doing business with, because you just feel more secure that you've seen that person's face, you know who they are, and you've agreed or disagreed on the topic you're talking about, and you know what your next steps are. The reason I think this is really taken off in the business world is because it's cheaper than having to travel somewhere. Say if you're even in this country and you want to go somewhere across the country, it's going to cost you probably several £100 to get there and stay there. Or even if you're talking to someone in another country, then that's going to cost £300-400 probably just to get over there. So I think this is really the way forward now for the actual businesses to reduce their costs and still have that face-to-face conversation that they like to have. And that's it for this part. Hello, this is the second part of the video on how to use IT to communicate effectively. In this part we're going to look at document proofing, mainly proofreading and the parts that go along with that. So the first thing we're going to look at is the actual proofreading. Now I'd say everything you write, proofread, whether it be just a text to someone, a document that you're completing for work, school, anything like that, just proofread it first. Proofread it yourself and then preferably get someone else to proofread it if you can. And I'd say if it's an important document that you want to make sure is correct, then proofread it yourself once and do the changes you think are necessary and then give it to someone else to read. If they come back and say, yeah, that's perfect, that's fine, that's done. But if they don't, just pass it on to someone else after you've made the changes and say, look, can you read this for me please? And just see if they come back and say it's perfect. Just keep giving it to new people until you get someone come back to you and say, look, that's perfect. Just send it, publish it, or whatever you're supposed to do with it. Just keep asking people until someone come back, you're perfect. Because if you ask the same person to read it twice after you've made the changes, the second time they won't be as interested. They'll know what it's about, they'll just skim read it, so they could miss something themselves. So make sure you just pass it on to someone new every time, if you can. If not, and you're on your own and you can't pass it to anyone else to have a look at, then just make sure you use the actual software ability that it has of checking your spellings and grammar. Like the F7 will check your spelling and grammar to make sure everything's okay. And also the red and green lines you get in Word, make sure you use them, and if you see one, see what the comment says or the spelling mistake says and correct it. Now for the second piece, it is actually directly talking about spelling and grammar check. Now for this, well, it all comes under the same thing, proofreading, but really you want to use the F7 in Word. I'm not sure what the check is in Pages and other software, but if you use them first and then after that, if you get someone to proofread it, they can also check on that whilst checking for everything else to make sure it makes sense. But the only thing I'd say about the F7 is when you get the box come up with the changes, don't be one of them people who just sit there and click change, change, change really quickly. Because if you don't actually read the word that it wants to change it to, the spelling mistake you've made, then you could end up with any word, because it just goes for the closest word that looks the same as what you've written. So if you've written something and then it gives you a word that makes no sense in the text you've written, then you're just going to look like a fool when you either send it or publish it or whatever you're going to do with the document. That's all I can really say for the spelling and grammar check. Now the last piece of this section is about punctuation. Again, F7 will pick up on these things, and so will the grammar, the green grammar lines in the actual text you're writing on Word and Pages. But again, whilst you're proofreading, I'd say check this at the same time, and then if you really are publishing something that is quite important or is going to be looked at a lot, or it matters how well you've written this, then go along and read it sentence by sentence. See if your sentences are too long, or if something doesn't quite add up, or you think you need an extra comma, or that full stop's just been missing that you've missed out. Just make sure you read it sentence by sentence, then you cannot go wrong with the grammar. And that's all for punctuation, and that's all for this part of the video. Hello, this is the third and final part of how to use IT to communicate effectively. In this section we'll be looking at effective communication. Now this will include understanding the audience, adapting the information that you want to give out depending on the target audience, and also clarifying what type of communication you're going to use, like meetings, questionnaires, discussions, or you try to get research, things like that. And so the first one we're going to look at is understanding the audience. Now, for example, if you were going to go and present something to a large audience, you wouldn't want to go to a bundle of Mac users to go and talk about the new Windows 8, because they will just not be interested. So you need to tailor what you're going to say to engage the audience in what you have to say. So using the same example, if you were going to talk to a load of Mac users about Windows 8, maybe you'd start off talking about the Mac and how brilliant it is and how brilliant that OS is, but then you kind of say, but look, this is Windows 8 and these are the things this can do, and maybe try and lower the OS down a bit and build up the perspective of Windows 8. That's just an example. And also another example is the age of the audience that you're going to talk to. Like, you're not going to go into a primary school and start getting all intellectual with them, because there's no point. They won't understand what you're saying and they won't be interested. So that's pretty much it really for understanding the audience. The next piece is adapt the information to your target audience. So using the same example again, you want... Sorry about that, my phone decided to fill its memory. Now, I was on about the example of doing a presentation to a bunch of Mac users about the Windows 8. Now, for the adapt information to a target audience, you want to go there. Well, first of all, you want to know what the audience was like. Are you talking to upper class people, middle class people, lower class people, all things like that, so you know how to approach them, because you don't want to go to a very high class audience and start talking in a slang way and not really talking in a formal way at all. So really you need to understand what your audience are like before you decide what you're going to say and how you're going to present it. Now, for the clarification of your communicate, which is the last piece of this, you want to know before you go to get or give the information that you're going to give or get. You want to know if you're going for the type of communication that's going to be in the form of a discussion, meeting. Is it going to be a piece of research that you're doing, questionnaire, or just a presentation? Because the way that you will approach the people will differ depending on what you want from them. So if you want a questionnaire, you're not going to really go to a large audience and say, look, these are my questions, what are your answers? It's going to be more of a small group or individually based thing where you'll ask them the same questions or similar questions to the next person or group that you'll ask. Whereas a discussion is going to be a room full of people, however many you decide that you want to talk to at once, and it'll be people's opinions on the topic you're talking about, and then you can get your information from that. Or if you're going to have a meeting, you would normally have one person leading that meeting, and then people would share their opinion, views and facts, and then you would all decide on your next steps from that. And that's all I really have on the clarification of the type of communication you want to use for that. And that's the end of this video for this section. Thanks for watching. Also, as well as this video, everything I've talked about has been written up in full, so if you want a more detailed explanation of the things I've talked about in any of the parts in this video, either in the first part of the blog or the 2 second parts of the video I've made, then you can read online. No, not online. You can read the document of that below. I'll put it in the link below, and you can just read your way through that. Right, that's all then. Right, thanks.